You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Sean Sebastian, and Mr.
Keith Cheatham.
Lighting it up Compassion Green again. Soon, guys. It's coming soon. Don't worry. Quarantine is coming to an end. We've already got some theaters that are opening up across the nation.
That's right. It's happening.
Slowly but surely. A lot of them are actually not really traditional theaters that we thought of. One of our topics coming up tonight happens to be about the old drive-in making a comeback. Yeah. Can y'all believe that?
Well, Texas is opening up some theaters.
So we've mentioned drive-ins on the show a couple of times about how people have said they were going to start going, and we didn't think if they would how successful they would be or not. And it turns out that they are having some success. Yeah,
right now. But will that continue? That is the question. I mean,
well, the initial thing was save the movie industry by going to the drive-in, and we kind of laughed like, well, that's not going to be enough to save the movie industry, which I still agree with. But
no, they're still reporting a loss of like 190% on the year. So
but you got to think there's nowhere
from being saved.
Nowhere near as many drive-ins as theaters.
True. But we got a great show for everybody tonight. Of course, tuning in on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah.
And as always, you can check out our live feed here on those two platforms, or you can always go back and rewatch some of our old episodes if you're that entertained by us by tuning in to redmoonproductions.com. That's right. Go to redmoonproductions.com, click on our RM podcast link, and then boom, there's all of our past shows. You can go to our YouTube page, watch all the past live content, our Tinseltown trivia segments that air here locally on WHAS. And we just want to give a shout out on, we just never throw any social love up there, You see the little lower at the bottom of our screen. But we just love all of our peeps out there who watch us. Yeah,
Give us please something.
We're so lonely. God. No one watches our show.
Something.
We promise that we'll keep the...
Neil is watching.
We thought the Corona quarantine was our meal ticket to viewership, and
Look, it just proves you can't just you can't just win everything.
That's right.
Yeah,
you can't ride on the misery caused by a pandemic.
No.
Yeah. No. You think you can, but you can't.
You can't.
You can't.
Unless you're Andy Bashir. Sorry.
No, I think everybody's. I don't know if everybody's getting tired of Papa Andy. I know I am.
Nah. I
mean, he at least dialed back the weekly, chats to, Monday through Friday. He got rid of the weekends.
I think people are just getting frustrated with how, and I mean, you had to know it was coming, but just how slow the reopening is.
Yeah.
But
I think he's feeling the pressure. I mean, let's just say there's already more stuff open than he would have wanted to open May 1st. So he's feeling the pressure.
People are already,
just saying.
Technically it's only 10 people, but I've seen people like in groups larger than 10.
Yeah.
So
I saw that 2 months ago.
Yeah, people, I saw that in March, in April.
Yeah.
So, people are already just like.
We can't be doing that.
You can't be doing that.
Can't be doing that.
Next slide, Kenneth.
Yeah. It's like, I'm thinking of a terrible line.
Oh, God.
From Silver Bullet that nobody knows.
I bet I know it.
What?
Well, I don't know.
Should I say it?
Yeah.
Well, then how do you know it?
I bet I would recognize it.
Okay, there you go. Okay. You can't bet managers. I said time and time again, you can't bet managers. Okay. We should start saying quotes on this show and just see if somebody out there recognizes them from the movie.
Well, we
can guess.
We have the quote.
We have this thing we never use.
It's up to you all to use it.
I pushed the button and nothing happened.
Oh no!
He's shut it off.
There it is.
Apparently, it just doesn't like Russell Crowe because the first time I hit "Are you not entertained?"
I don't know.
It's like, no, I wasn't by Robin Hood.
Are you not entertained? There it goes.
You just needed to wake it up. It needed to warm up.
Yeah,
it's been in quarantine too long.
One thing that hasn't stopped is us.
That's right. We've kept going through this quarantine. We're always here nonstop entertainment.
That's right.
Still reviewing the Best Picture winners of yesteryear.
All the way back from the original 1930s.
Yeah. And this
There's
year,
nothing else that wasn't original about
1932? Is that where we're at
1932 was when this movie released. the 5th Academy Awards. We've been kind of all across the board with our opinions on the first 5 so far, but I think we hit one we can all agree on. So here's the review of Grand Hotel. The golden age of Hollywood didn't just spring up overnight. New techniques, technology, and methods for telling story were and still are constantly being created and then evolved further. No film makes for a better showing of Hollywood's growth and better represents the core of what became the golden age of film better than the 5th Academy Award Best Pictures winner, 1932's Grand Hotel. Based on the stage play of the same name released 2 years prior, which itself was based on the German novel München im Hotel, Grand Hotel is one of Hollywood's first major ensemble films. Directed by Edmund Goulding, who had served as screenwriter for second Best Picture winner The Broadway Melody, before Grand Hotel it was rare to have multiple leading actors in a single film. With studios traditionally showcasing one major actor as their draw, Grand Hotel set a new precedent for box office filmmaking, with MGM and Goulding hiring several leading actors to fulfill all of the major roles in the film, starring Greta Garbo, John and Lionel Barrymore, Joan Crawford, Wallace Beery, Louis Stone, and Jean Hersholt. The film centers around multiple guests during their stay at the Grand Hotel in Berlin between World War I and II. Each character and their story are unique as they interact with one another and as their lives play out on screen. The main plot follows the guest as Baron Felix von Geigern, played by John Barrymore, must come up with 5,000 marks to pay off a debt while crossing paths with Grusinskaya Greta Garbo as a famous Russian dancer who fears she's reached her prime. The dying Otto Kringelein, played by Lionel Barrymore, who wishes to spend his remaining days in luxury at the hotel. General Director Preissing, a textile industrialist on a business venture, played by Wallace Beery, and his stenographer Flimschen, portrayed by Joan Crawford. Throughout the film runs a wonderful comedic streak, aided by genuinely sharp dialogue and solid comedic acting. One of the most praised and mesmerizing aspects of Grand Hotel during its time was its use of more subdued acting. Up until this point, films were often more campy and coming out of the silent era tended to yield more over-exaggerated performances. Goulding instead opted for a more subdued direction, and while the acting in Grand Hotel may not be as subtle as Best Picture winners of the present, the contrast between the performances in Grand Hotel and its predecessors, such as the previous year's Cimarron, is undeniable. Pulling off ensemble films is a hard feat to accomplish for modern and past filmmakers alike. Balancing multiple characters, all with varying story arcs in one film, can be an unmitigated cluster. But done well creates a more diverse world on film and compelling story. Grand Hotel has its share of problems, but it nails the balance an ensemble film should, creating the precedent for such films. Where the movie falters are unfortunately in the script itself and some of the rarer moments where the acting dips. While the story is solid and the quips good, some of the everyday dialogue maintained between characters is less than realistic, even if it was a step up from older films. One scene in particular comes to mind when Preissing argues with a rival businessman over which company initiated a deal to merge. Meant for laughs, both the acting and writing fill the scene. While praised at the time, I also found Greta Garbo's acting and character to be bland, and despite one key scene, unnecessary to the plot. Grand Hotel may seem like such a simple film to win Best Picture, but it is entertaining throughout with great pacing and a balanced cast and story. Grand Hotel took a simple stage plot and brought it to life on screen. With more nuance and brilliant direction, the single location of Grand Hotel feels more real and prolific than Cimarron's Oklahoma set pieces. One trait it does share with the other early Best Picture winners is undeniable. It changed the way people saw movies, but not through advanced effects and flashy techniques, but through subtlety and good direction. I give Grand Hotel 3 out of 4 stars.
That's it. 3 out of...
You got it?
No, yeah, I think you got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you got it. Yeah, you got it. That's it. Oh, gross.
That'll get it.
The grossest thing I've ever seen.
Man.
Especially after a good review like
Better.
that. Just took a swig and...
The old Blue Moon.
Washed it on down.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, good thing to watch Red Moon with your Blue Moon.
Red Moon with your Blue Moon, and you go to town and you watch good movies.
A quarantine drive-in on Thursday nights.
Drive-in, yep. Don't know where we're airing this.
I don't know either. That's probably something we should figure out while we
talk about this movie.
Actually, we should, because Cimarron was such a letdown.
Yeah.
That 3 out of 4 stars, the first time we've unanimously agreed on a Best Picture winner from that era. And what do y'all have to say about it?
I mean, I enjoyed the film. I mean, it had its problems, and it wasn't immediately a film that I felt like screamed, Best Picture winner. Mm-hmm. But amongst all of the first 5, excluding like Wings and All Quiet. I just felt like it was the most entertaining. I mean, it was miles ahead of Cimarron and the Broadway Melody, and it just had it had a lot of subtlety to it that I felt like they didn't. That the acting in those movies are melodramatic or over the top, and this one I think was a little bit more subdued in the way they played it. Even if it wasn't as grand in scope as some of those movies, it made up for it by being more realistic, even if it's not the most realistic we've seen.
Yeah. Though the acting performances were like you said, it was way ahead of the game when it comes to some of the other movies that we've seen in comparison to those. But I think one of the things that made this movie such a big thing when it came out in 1932 was having that many stars on one screen. They were kind of used to having just one main star be in the film, and this had what, 7 or
it had
not.
It had 5 major players and then 2 more minor, but all
I think altogether there was like 7 pretty well-known actors that were in the film, and that made it something that was unique back then.
And for those who don't know, because I mean, John and Lionel Barrymore are Drew Barrymore's grandfather and great uncle. Her whole family has pretty much acted. Her father did. He did more TV and westerns.
I'm just telling you, that just let me know it's a rigged town.
Her name,
her name is. You gotta know somebody. Goes back there.
Her name is a family name. Drew, though, is his was John Barrymore's mother's maiden name. Her name was I think it was like Georgina or something like that. Drew. And then of course she married and became Barrymore, and he named his son John Drew Barrymore, who named his daughter Drew Barrymore.
Wow. So, nice little, I like the little tidbits.
Yeah, that's just like our Tinseltown trivia.
Every week, that's right. And you can check it out.
On Great Day Live.
Check it out.
Something that stood out to me with this film was, you have to remember, this was right before, it was right before Hitler came to power. So this film came out, it was based
in Berlin.
And the people were supposed to be, German, and all of this stuff happened. Their accents were terrible. That's why they were supposed to be German.
I was gonna say
none of them had an accent except for the one guy.
Yeah. Truthfully, just kind of like All Quiet.
But
it was literally like, we're gonna set this in a different place.
But they speak
until 100 years later, when you actually get people who have those accents and speak that language to be in your film.
But to have a film that took place in the 30s. Right at the height of that, and it was taking place in that country. And nowhere in the movie the depression of the time is felt, but there's no political. There's nothing in the movie that's added to make it a political response to what was going on in that time.
And I actually like that.
I mean, that was something that I'm just like, okay, it's 1932. It's all this stuff is going on, and I'm like, when are we going to see?
When
something
is that
to do,
be
and it just
plot.
never was, and I liked that, because too many movies from today they almost have to cater to the political climate of the
that time, thinking that's the big draw,
right? And this
when
movie
back then
didn't
it was
that.
like, well, and you forget too of just how common certain things were back then before it escalated, and it's like with the common day stories and the everyday lives, and that's the one thing I liked about this is Keith, you actually sent it to me in a text, kind of. Before you revealed to me what you thought about the movie, about it kind of seeming like Wes Anderson and
I said the story structure.
Yes, in the way that it tells
because it's an ensemble film, and that's very hard to balance anyways. It's something Joss Whedon does really well.
Yes.
And Wes Anderson for sure.
Yeah.
I said the way the plots converge, and then you have that final climactic problem, which I don't want to spoil with this film, but and then involving John Barrymore's character. But they all converge into a single point, and then they kind of go their separate ways. And Wes Anderson does that beautifully. Like when I was watching the film, it was the Coen brothers and Wes Anderson specifically.
Coen brothers.
I thought of watching this thinking, if they remade this movie, I could easily see either of it. Which Wes Anderson did make Grand Budapest, which is a similar setting, and it's basically his take on a hotel-themed film, which in my opinion is much better. But I was sitting there watching this, if he hadn't have made that and instead made a straight-up, remake of Grand Hotel, I was thinking this movie would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Because the story structure is so well done. The characters are extremely interesting. I really enjoyed the unique characters.
And I was going to say, from the outset, in just the way this film started, it was interesting for the time just because of it really kind of dropping you into, for one, it kind of sets you up perfectly with just one of the opening lines of, a hotel, everybody comes here, there's nothing ever going on. And it sets you up for this kind of mundane, droll type of setting. Yet at the same time, it then picks up with obviously the bigger story at hand and how all these pieces of the puzzle fit together. It was odd because while I liked the film, I will say that I was not sure, based on other films being nominated at the time, at least I didn't like Cimarron. It was terrible. Yeah. But I could at least understand, because of the time that it released, The Spectacle, All Quiet. Fantastic movie, opposite of Cimarron, but still had the spectacle. Like we've said, all of these others have almost seemed like they were there and they were the best picture winners because of how big and grandiose they were.
Because a lot of the technological advancements.
Yeah. And this is the first time where, and I think you even see certain technological advances creep up in this film with so many of the dolly shots. This is the first time where I think you see a lot of trucking shots and even crane shots that you didn't really see in the others unless they were the big battle scenes. But with all of those things focusing on a much more intimate story, it's interesting to almost see if the Academy went a different direction, because it was something that was smaller. And I think after Cimarron, which soured so many, even though it was praised back in the day, I think maybe they went for something that was a lot more grounded and rooted in believable.
I would agree.
Believability.
Because one thing I noticed, like when I was reading up on the film to write my review, is that the aspect of that subdued acting was very just something that audiences ate up. Yeah. It mesmerized them. They were used to the campier, more melodramatic acting. Yes. So when they saw more realistic performances, they were hooked. And I think that might have been part of what urged this forward into winning that Best Picture, is because it's the first time you really got a grasp of, you could tell a story with a more realism than being the flashy spectacle that we got with Cimarron and All Quiet and Wings.
Well, let me ask you all this then. So what would you all knock it down from the 4-star to the 3-star? Because even though we've talked about, we mentioned it last week with our review of Cimarron, how we thought it, being a 2.5 really, and I think, Sean, you even rated it a 1.5 or 2, was it?
Cimarron?
Yeah, Cimarron.
I think I did 2.
I gave it 2. I was on the fence between 1.5, but I settled on 2.
Yeah. And the thing is with something like that, it's not that it was so bad. We definitely won't revisit it.
Boring.
But it was boring, and
I'm never going to watch it again.
Same here. But we agreed that it was definitely not a Best Picture winner, and that usually those are 3 and above. But we would even say, I think today, that 3.5, 4 is what you should have as.
Honestly, this past year, all of them were 3.5 except for Ford v Ferrari. That was the only one I rated 3.
And even the ones that we rate 3 that are nominated for Best Picture right now, and now time, it's like we end up usually kind of putting those to the bottom of the barrel and say those are the bottom half, that those don't have a chance to win, and they normally never
Ford
do.
v Ferrari had no chance.
No. So but the question is so if. Again, not having seen the competition, if we went back and reviewed all of the nominations as well, that'd be a little bit harder for us to do, but we would probably have a better feeling as to if this truly deserved it that year or not. But not knowing that, why would you take it down, to a 3-star?
Some of the things for me was, yes, the acting was definitely more subtle and more realistic, but it wasn't even throughout the entire film. There are moments and certain actors that got more melodramatic. Some lines, like where I loved the comedic writing, I thought it was very sharp-witted. I felt some of the other aspects that were just meant to drive the film along weren't written as well. Like I mentioned, the scene with the Bealey's character, Beerley. Yeah, Beerley. Who
they all had weird names.
Yeah. They were arguing back and forth about who initiated this merger with this business. It was 2 businessmen, and I was like, they wouldn't sit there and be like, "No, you initiated." No, it was you. And I was like, it was supposed to be a gag, but it went too long. Greta, I'm dropping her name too. Not Gerwig.
You got me thinking Thunberg.
Not Thunberg either. I have to pull up.
She was long since before.
Let me pull
She's one of the more.
She was the most. She was the most prominent name at the time. Here it is. Well, that's Golding's name. We'll get there eventually.
Sean, what about you, real quick, while he's looking?
Greta Garbo.
I echo a lot of the stuff that Keith said, but I do feel like there was an inconsistency with, and I think we talked about it on our Great Day segment. I do think that there was a difference in where the actors were coming from. Some of them were starting with talkies, and other ones had started years before with the silent films, and I think that shows in their style of acting.
Yes.
The ones that were kind of really over the top were the ones who were used to doing silent film, where you have to be over the top because obviously what you're saying is not being conveyed through the audio and everything. They can't hear the emotion in your voice, so you have to do the emotion with your hands and your face. And I think those actors and those actresses were the ones that really kind of went overboard with certain scenes, but that just kind of made it inconsistent. It wasn't like all the actors were all on the same page when it came to making this film. And I think when you look behind the scenes, some of the stuff that we were researching for Tinseltown Trivia, you kind of find that some of the actors really didn't get along with each other, and they kind of thought that, you know, each other couldn't act. Yeah. You know, the ones who were used to this overreaction didn't think the subtle characters could act. It was
actually a lot harder task to keep keep them in line with how big names they were.
Yeah. One thing I just wanted to add, and I know this is based off of a novel and then a play, but one thing, and I don't know if it's a problem from the novel or the play or just with this movie, I did not find Greta Garbo's character very necessary. Like, she has one key scene that is important to the story, but after that, I felt like you could have thrown out that entire character and it wouldn't have mattered. And I kind of wish they had found another way to convey.
She has the most famous line from the movie, doesn't she?
Yeah. Well, and it's based off of the audience's perception of her as an actress at the time.
Yeah.
Her line, I just want to be
alone.
I just want to be alone was very famous because it was kind of tongue in cheek because she was very reclusive and she didn't like, you know, the paparazzi but she just kind of wanted to be left alone. So when she says the line in the movie, audiences ate it up because that was already the conception of her was that she's somebody who is reclusive anyway.
Right. Well, and I would say that for me, the reason I kind of ticked it down to 3 stars instead of the 4 or even 3.5, it was the only movie that while I was watching and entertained by it, it was the one time where I felt like, you know, at least with Cimarron, I was just bored. And I was like, I know this doesn't deserve it.
Yes.
This one, I felt like I need to see others.
Yeah.
I need to see the others that it's competing with.
I agree.
And it was just one movie where I was like, I'm not convinced that just by seeing this film alone, this is a timeless classic, that it's worth. I'm not saying it's not a good movie. Mm-hmm. It just isn't something that I would consider a Best Picture winner. Granted, it's only been 5 years that the Academy has existed. So at this point in time, it's like it's hard for me to say that, knowing I've seen tons of films since. But I'm just saying, even to be viewing it now and trying to put even all of what I know about film on hold just to kind of view it from back then, I still would like to see the other films it was up against.
I will say this,
especially because I think another tidbit that we had talked about in Tinseltown was that this is the only Academy Award it was nominated for and won was Best Picture.
It was nominated for any others.
And for it to have that many actors and actresses of well-known taste,
it's a little strange.
It's a little taste that they didn't get nominated for anything.
I will say that both this movie and Cimarron were 2 hours long, and this one was much. I felt every minute of those 2 hours with Cimarron. Yeah. I just wanted it to end.
No, I will say that halfway through this, I paused and I was like, "Oh wait, I am halfway through. This is great." Okay. Definitely much better use of its time. All right, guys. So 3 out of 4 stars for Grand Hotel.
Yes, sir.
Definitely worth watching. The 5th Best Picture winner of the Academy Awards.
At this point, I will say I am beginning to look forward to more of the future movies because at this point, I feel like it's safe to say that we will have a little bit more substance throughout going on. Yeah. Not to say that there won't be any other bad ones. We know even from recent times that there's still bad winners sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but it is cool to know that, you know, they are evolving, and to see that evolution on screen as we go from year to year, it's been really fun.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I think it's time to head into our headlines this week. We got 2 that we're talking about. Woo! 2 that we're focusing on, and the first one that we've got coming up is like what we teased there at the beginning of the show. Are drive-ins making a comeback?
Are they?
What do you all think?
No.
Trust me.
I love drive-ins.
Oh yeah.
I wish we still had, because the closest one now I think is in Owensboro.
Yeah.
Which is like an hour drive away.
Which is crazy because we used to have them like right in the backyard.
Yeah. There was one out in LaGrange or somewhere out there, but it got hit by the tornado a couple years, like 2 years ago. And they rebuilt it though.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they've
since become like a vacant lot.
I think that's the one I might be thinking of, but it's still like a 45-minute drive.
It's out in the East End.
Kenwood used to be right there.
Kenwood,
there used to be one on South Park.
There actually was one.
It's really sad
in Indiana.
Yeah, on Louisville Road or Bardstown Road, when you're going towards where I live. There's a drive-in on the left that's just abandoned.
Yeah.
It's got vines growing all over the screen. It's real sad. Every time I drive by it, I'm just man, if I had the money, I would buy that and bring it back.
But like people
it's right out in the middle of farmland and stuff. It'd be a great spot.
Kenwood Drive-In reopened 3 or 4 times, and they just couldn't make enough money to keep it going.
See, and that's okay. So really, the headline was that 200 theaters, 200 plus theaters, have opened up across the country as the quarantines are winding down. 50 of them were traditional theaters, like we know them of today.
Yeah.
And most of them were in Texas. The other 150 were all drive-ins across the U.S.
Yeah.
Now, while I think this is kind of nice for people to open them back up, dust off the equipment. Honestly, that's what I'm more interested in, is for as long as drive-ins have not been open and not been run, how did this happen? Like, where did they get this equipment to just be like, oh, yeah, let's start this back up again?
Yeah.
Are they borrowing this equipment
especially since
from other theaters?
Yeah, projectors, projector bulbs. I mean, all of that is costly.
I was going to say, I don't know if they can do the traditional DLP, digital lens projection cinemas like the actual movie theaters have, nor did they have that kind of equipment even before.
Yeah.
Before when theaters started really shutting down, it was when they had the older film reel projectors. And I'm just like, that's what I'm more interested in are some of these drive-ins, they had the updated technology, or are there, and they were always going to be fine because they were already open, or are there a lot of these that are opening that are just trying to figure out, well, we can run some old favorites that we had in the back.
I think quite a few of them are ones that were already in existence, and I'm sure there are plenty that popped up taking advantage of the situation. But yeah, I mean, drive-ins are such a niche thing, and they are really nostalgic and fun. But it's just one of those things where I just don't. I think when theaters reopen back up and when people start going back to the movies, you're going to see another drop at the drive-in, and I don't think this is going to be enough to. I don't think this is really going to salvage drive-ins. It just gave them one last hurrah.
True, and I think that's the interesting thing is you have AMC, Regal, and Cinemark that are all still remaining closed until July, and it's like if those are the bigger theater chains that aren't opening up. The reason they're not is because, it costs more for them to run. Mm-hmm. But if they're even just waiting for the next big films to kind of show up on the block, then, these other theaters probably don't have the latest. We know they don't because there's not been any announced for the theaters that have opened. Mm-hmm. So we know that the theaters that are open are running older films.
We know the earliest major releases aren't coming until July. Like, studios have already announced, some of the big box office movies.
Could you announce the big one that you found?
It was a Russell Crowe film. I have to look. It was an indie film, and
I was talking about the Greyhound.
That one. Yeah, well, the Russell Crowe one's the first. Going to be the first new film release.
I forgot what it's called. I read the article the other day.
But the Greyhound, starring Tom Hanks, as a World War II film, originally was slated to release in June, and they've actually Apple TV Plus has now acquired it and is going to launch it. So it's actually going to premiere on Apple TV Plus, not in theaters.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, a Tom Hanks World War II epic.
I mean, you had Trolls 2 and you had Scoob, which are animated family films, but the fact that Tom Hanks
a submarine
film.
Movie? I think so. He was a submarine commander or something in the movie or something like that.
But yeah, it's pretty big that a movie like that would go straight to streaming as opposed to, like I said, family movies like Scoob and Trolls 2.
Yeah.
Well, and what's the other? You were talking about the Russell Crowe one. It's where he's what's the name of that one? He's like this trucker, or not trucker. He's in he's like driving a truck, but he's trying to get revenge on this woman who pretty much gave him a bad. Yeah, it
was a very low budget. Rage. Yeah, it was very low budget film, so they don't really like.
It doesn't look half bad.
They're in a good position.
Looks like Taken in like the opposite
way.
Unhinged.
Yeah, it looks really good, and the fact that it is so low budget means that they're not at risk to lose millions of dollars. Like if Black Widow were to release, they're not going to take that risk of people not going to see it. This movie, even if only half the audience goes out and sees it, it could still recoup all of its budget, so they're in a really good position to be the first.
And then, of course, Christopher Nolan's Tenet is he still wants it to be released in July.
He wants that in July. Mulan's supposed to release in July, so you do have a couple bigger ones coming.
Well, and I think it's slated too that apparently Nolan, which it's funny because I know people would probably try to tie this into that's why he wants it to release because apparently he's got like a 20% stake in the success of the theatrical run.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is like. That's also a 20% stake if it fails.
Yeah.
So even
it's
if
he might want to play it safe and wait later on. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's a risk either way. But just for anybody who may try to call foul on him like, oh, he just wants money. It's like I mean
I think
any filmmaker would want.
He legitimately wants theaters to stay alive.
Yes.
And I think he feels like not only can he make some money, but his film may help bring people to the seats.
Agreed.
So I definitely, if it comes out, I'll be there to see it. But I mean, it sounds like to me you've got at least 3 big name films coming out in July alone. If they can come out with 2 to 3 films a month that are big names like that, then I think the theaters will come back. But I just don't see how, without running so many, you got to think, how many theaters does AMC here in Louisville have? Stony Brook's got 20 theaters, right?
Yeah.
So how are they going to show 3 movies in 20 theaters?
I think they can because of the social distancing.
Well, yeah, because they can only have 30% capacity anyway. So if you put 3 movies in all 20 of their theaters, that gives more people the opportunity.
I guess that's true.
Yeah. I do think though by then they'll be allowed to have more than that.
Yeah, by July they are allowed.
But they're going to have to fill those other theaters with reruns, of classic films or something like that,
or with the same film. If you have
if
you have the same film in those 3 different theaters and you can only do so many capacity.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
it's like then you have the ability to fill up a full theater by doing it in 3 different theaters.
If typically you show Mulan in 3 theaters, but you only have 3 movies and you can only fill half the theater up,
then
why not show Mulan in 6 theaters and still
and then
get
there
it?
you go, and then you get your regular income. Yeah. I mean, that'll make Disney and everybody else, who's the owner, the distributor of that movie happy. But and that may be their short-term solution.
The only downside is there's only one IMAX. I mean, they only have that in one.
Tenet's getting that.
So you can't put Mulan and Tenet both in there.
Yeah. Tenet. Now, that would piss Nolan off. Running to my theater, but not in IMAX.
Well, Mulan is, I think, releasing first, so it'll probably be in there up until Tenet does release.
It might,
yeah, that's true. Good point.
Yeah.
But I don't think – I honestly see – I do see drive-ins lasting beyond. I'd say, let me put it up to the fall.
People are still buying record players.
I agree.
Right.
They're still going to go to drive-ins.
Well,
that's how they've been able to kind of limp along this so far anyway.
And I think the main point and the reason why is because I still think the social distancing and the health purposes are going to be what drive people to go to the drive-in over the theater. Is you still have those health conscious people that are going to see it as more of a risk to go to a theater even with 30% or 50% capacity or the social distancing tactics implemented. They're not going to want to go to the theater for that. They're going to go to the drive-in. And if you can convince, for the time being, if distributors or big huge studios will give some of their newer movies to those drive-ins, you may be able to see that even your drive-in will carry the latest, greatest film when those start releasing again in July. So time will tell, but I don't think drive-ins, I'm in agreement with you all. I don't think drive-ins are going to last beyond the year. I think you're going to see a majority of them that kind of straggle, but once winter hits and it's indoor, next season pops up back around and all the popcorn's flowing and everybody's
you'll still
back.
have some drive-ins.
We
always have.
Always
have.
But I mean, that's just like what Sean was saying about record players.
Yeah.
You're going to have them. But
they're not going to be predominant.
Even record players are more in demand than drive-ins.
Those are making a comeback.
They sell vinyl at Walmart now.
So vinyl's making a comeback.
Yeah. So you have reasons for people who love the vintage feel, other than just going and seeing it, terrible grainy footage on a big metal screen. Hey. I don't know. People love their vintage, but
some people just like to make out in cars.
That's true. But remember, going to church on Sunday, okay?
Wear a mask.
It's kind of like going to the theater in general, though. You got to go to the drive-in for the experience more so. Because I mean, it is something about that. It is a lot of fun.
I'm not gonna lie. When we run the quarantine drive-in and we have that little 5-minute tick down marker,
yeah, you wish you could be at an actual drive-in.
It is. Well, it is. It's kind of cool to see the vintage stuff, but it's funny when they're like, we now have equipped it with electric heaters, and it's like, please, if the wire's loose, don't tighten. And I'm like, like talk about a fire hazard.
Yeah, don't touch it.
I was like, no wonder the friggin' drive-in's closed.
Yeah. I used to love the drive-in though because we used to go with my neighbor friend. We would all load into their car and go, or he would come with my family and we would go. And it was always like we would tell our dads like, go, we want hot dogs or we need more popcorn, and that would get rid of Dad or mom or whatever, and then we could talk about whatever we wanted while they were gone, or we could get out of the car and do stupid stuff, throw rocks at people, whatever we wanted to do. But we would, be like, hey, I need another Coke, and they'd go get the Coke, and then that was like our freedom.
That's probably why the parents never liked
love
it.
that stuff. And I remember sneaking people in the trunks of the car.
You couldn't do that now because they'd have the drive-through concession now for the Corona thing. They actually where you could drive up to a window and order your popcorn.
But that used to be part of the thing of going to the concession, walking a half a mile to the concession stand, and walking a half a mile back carrying all your food.
I will say
you miss like 30 minutes of the movie. You gotta wait in line.
No, you think about opposite though. It's one time where you don't miss the movie. It's like if everybody's watching it and it's a good movie, you can still hear all the speakers playing.
You can stand in line at the concession stand and
look over and see
the concession stand. Usually, it would have speakers in the concession anyway, so you could hear while you're at the concession stand.
I just remember I love for one, you get a double feature, so you always get two movies. My favorite was if you happen to be at a drive-in where they showed a rated R movie. It was like you could watch over every once in a while and like, oh, is there a booby? Like, I just remember me and my brother trying to watch Sleepy Hollow, thinking they were like boobies or something in it because it was rated R.
My first date was at a drive-in, and it was Bad Boys 2, and I can't think of the other movie.
I was there.
What was the other movie?
Was it American Wedding? I feel like
yes, it was American Wedding and Bad Boys 2.
Bad Boys 2.
Back.
Could you imagine that double feature?
American Wedding?
I did not
see like where he's shaving his pubes out the window.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. You can look over and see that.
You don't have to look over. There's only one screen at the Kenwood.
Okay.
Bad Boy. It did bad. They always showed the first movie, then the second movie, then the first movie again. So you'd have Bad Boys. American Wedding.
That
way, if you didn't want
to, if you wanted to.
That way, if you didn't want to come early, you could come in time for the second show and still see that first. Like you could come later.
Oh,
okay,
okay,
yeah.
That's
cool. It was a lot of fun.
See, and I don't know. There are some interesting things like that I think made the drive. I mean, they had to come up with new ways to market it to make it worthwhile. I think it's like what you said, Sean. It's actually more cumbersome because it's more of a nostalgic trip, but it's also, I think, it's kind of one of those things where you don't really get to thoroughly enjoy the film. It's like you're going to get up. Most people.
It's more for the social thing than it is to see the movie.
I don't know. I think I had way more fun watching Bad Boys 2 and American Wedding that way than I would have.
It does depend on the content. I mean, if you have a movie that actually is kind of funny in a social setting, you actually may have times where, like, to me, it would be like the old days with, like, kind of, and not Sonic is just the one that we have. The Sonic drive-ins where you can pull up to your car and people to, it's like, those have been a dying fad forever, but it's kind of, it was always the social aspect of it that attracted people. It was like where the teens hung out on Friday night. And so it was like for the drive-ins, I feel like it is one of those things where you'd have a movie, but you'd also have that social aspect of, get out and talk. And I think a lot of parents who are loading up your families are just not going to go to the drive-in unless, that's what movies they're showing now. So I don't know. I don't think they'll last beyond the year, though. I think drive-ins will kind of go back down. So we'll see. We'll see if they hang on there. Another headline, though, I wanted to bring up this week happened to be
it's that beer.
Got a little bit. Get that.
He's got that
blue moon
burps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
No, I wanted to talk about the fact that Netflix and Amazon are starting back up production.
Well, good for them.
That's right.
I'm glad somebody is.
The COVID has come to an end for them.
I want to watch new things, not the same old things.
No, well, that's the thing. It's not across the board.
Yeah.
In France, they're releasing some restrictions for certain production crews. Actually, the National Film Board of France was able to come in with some funds that were raised to kind of support this and get this up and running. So the fact is this a good sign that we have obviously two of the biggest streaming giants that are starting up production soon? There's some films and I think even shows for those two companies are shot in other places in Europe, but not in France, that are still having to wait until almost September before the production begins. So this is obviously not across the board in Europe, but in certain select places.
I would say one thing I like about Netflix and Amazon are they kind of do what they want. Like, obviously, I mean, within the realms of what's legal, but as far as, like, when you have, like, the Academy and other movie studios say, well, this is how we do things and we don't differentiate from that. Netflix and Amazon have always been like, well, no, we can do business this way, and it works. And I will say I do like the fact that Netflix and Amazon are like, we're going to handle our stuff and make films as we can when we can, and you all worry about yourselves.
Yeah.
Well, and go ahead, Charlie.
No, I was just going to say one thing that I've noticed is with Amazon and Netflix, and we've mentioned this before about how there's so much content that it's hard to, to cipher what you want to watch. But in a time like this, there has still been new stuff coming out on Netflix and Amazon because they've got so much crap. They've just got crap in reserve to release when stuff. I mean, because you had John Henry that just came out. I haven't seen it yet. I want to watch it.
I really want to watch it.
You have, like you said, David Spade's new movie came out.
Extraction.
He's not extinct yet. That wasn't a half bad action flick.
That was a fantastic
it was an entertaining movie.
It was good.
And it's just like with all of that stuff still releasing and feeling fresh during this time when you're sitting at home on the couch looking for something to watch.
They're trying to capitalize
There
on
is new stuff to watch. So it's not just that they're starting production on new stuff. They've been releasing new stuff, which I appreciate.
Apple TV Plus has Greyhound now.
Greyhound.
They had nothing else. They had to get something.
Well, but no, that's my question, though, too. You talk about them releasing new things, but the fact is it could have been things that they did have already in their back pocket.
Yeah.
Because of this, halting production across the board for a lot of major studios, are we going to see a lull coming up? Because they're now in production, releasing things that probably would be finishing or wrapping up that would come out sooner. Like, is there going to be a lull at some point? And not to say that's a bad thing, because truthfully, hey, quarantine's over. Get out and play. We don't need new stuff.
I mean, they've got a list out of the things that are going to release or drop on Netflix for the rest of the year.
Ahead of time.
So they do have, like you said, months ahead of time worth of stuff that I don't think we're going to see much of a lull between what there is now and what's being produced.
We also have quite a few different productions saying that this isn't going to affect. I mean, I know the Umbrella Academy Season 2 announced like they're not going to be affected. They'll still release next year when they plan to.
The Witcher is still planning
on
releasing.
The Witcher said they're still on time. This isn't Netflix or Amazon, but Disney Plus has said Mandalorian's not going to be affected at all either. So there's plenty of stuff that managed to get right between that window and accomplish what it needed to still launch when they wanted to.
It's weird because I kind of think it was a good thing that productions were halted, not across the board, but for these companies in particular, only because I just feel like Netflix does have so much content that I'm just kind of like, okay, well, you all really weren't hurting to begin with. It's not even about hurting. It's just, I don't know. I don't have the time to catch up on it.
One thing I really enjoyed is the fact that I've finally been able to catch up on a lot of things. It's like I've so many things I want to watch or read or video games I want to play that it's like, you can't keep up with all of it. And this was a perfect opportunity to be like, okay, now I can kind of catch up on a few things so that when new stuff releases, I can watch it.
Right. Yeah. But I don't know. I, for one, think it's a good thing to see productions starting back up again. I do think it's going to be a trend now that we see it across, I think it's kind of like even what we've seen here in the U.S., where one state, while people want to, you have your different governors all across the states, arguing, well, now's not the right time, or, oh, yeah, we're going to just open up everything. Mm-hmm. And I think it's always, everybody's been on board with, somewhere in between. And to me, I think as you see more and more things open up and more get back to normal, you're going to see the same thing here in the States too. And it's like Hollywood is not the center for everything production anymore. You have, states like Georgia. You have so many other states that have production houses and a strong film community
in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's just going to be a matter of time before we see. It's going to put the pressure really on Hollywood theaters or through the studios to start, getting the cameras rolling again. I mean, that's really what I see this being.
I say cry havoc and release the Dogs of War.
Let's slip the Dogs of War.
He almost got it. I didn't know the quote.
I was paraphrasing. I mean, I wasn't going like this.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm messing with you. The only reason that I know that is from the Postman movie that you all made fun of.
That's still.
But I remember Kevin Costner saying that.
It's an
because they call him Shakespeare,
it's
and
from Shakespeare. I know. Yeah,
I
remember it more distinctly from Smallville because Lex Luthor quote because Lex Luthor supposed to be so smart, but he quoted.
I just know the line "Cry Havoc" from King Kong, the remake.
Oh yeah,
because the play he makes is called "Cry Havoc."
No,
and that's the only thing I know it from. I didn't even know it was a Shakespeare quote.
Yeah, wow, it's from Caesar, I think.
Well, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Yeah. Okay,
come to bury Caesar, not to praise him.
And the sad thing is we all had to memorize that.
That one I actually know much better.
I know.
I like that monologue. I like Shakespeare.
I
know you don't care for Shakespeare.
No,
much.
I do. I didn't back then because I was ignorant. I was stupid. I was ignorant. Okay, I was stupid in high school.
Ignorant.
But I do like Shakespeare.
Okay.
I just didn't understand.
Well, that's
him
good
back
to
then.
know that your brain has gone from microchip to just a little bit bigger.
Oh,
He's starting
it's a
that.
system on a chip now.
That's right.
Yeah.
SOS. SOC.
In a couple of years, I say in a couple of years, he may like a rival.
System on a something.
Circuit. Circuit spelled with an S. All right, we're done.
God.
Oh, yeah, I guess, man, moving right along, I think it's ready. Are we ready for our relationship segment?
I think so.
All right, let's get to it.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above and a thing called love.
Oh, love.
I like that picture.
You like that one?
It's like
the
a
little
refrigerator.
birds and the bees.
It's like on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
One of our kids drew.
It's just like when your kid comes to
One
you
of
and
our
it's just
kids.
like,
I just said that. I don't know why.
One
I
of
said
our
that.
kids.
One of my kids.
One of our
hey,
kids.
look, anytime
Sorry.
y'all want.
I
we
feel like
can-
Y'all
I'm
might
part of
have
the
them
family
somewhere
now.
else.
No, let's have a Red Moon baby.
Mm.
Y'all want like a Red Moon poster child?
What would a red moon poster child? Ooh,
Yeah, why not?
who we getting?
So you're
We
saying
gotta
we
pick a
could?
good one.
I know we gotta go through it. This is a process.
Could we
We don't
mix
want
our
no Jake
DNAs
Lloyd.
and
Just
have
saying.
that like
Like
injected
No,
into
I mean,
somebody and then
artificially
they have a baby that
inseminated?
looks like all three of us?
No.
That'd
It
be
has to be
weird.
the like. We don't want a Jake Lloyd. We have to get a good one. I don't know if our DNA is good enough.
Man,
Just being honest.
if Jake Lloyd was still that age, I'd take him.
You,
I'd
it's
take
like
him.
I just want you to be bad on screen.
Hey, Red Moon could have saved him from prison. We could have saved.
We could have
his
saved him
life.
from
Saved from a
George
lot of
Lucas.
things.
Yeah, exactly.
man.
George Lucas
Ruined
put
Jake
Jake
Lloyd.
Yeah.
Lloyd in prison.
They would have. You would have
It's like-
asked like, "How's your life?" And he would have been like, "It's working. It's actually working."
If he was working for us, that's what he would have said. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. I mean, everybody thinks Jar Jar was what ruined Star Wars.
No.
No, it was Jake Lloyd. And it was honestly George
Poor
who
kid.
ruined Jake.
I swear.
I'm telling you, man, that kid.
He was great in Jingle All the Way.
We want. no, he wasn't. I mean,
telling you.
no, he wasn't.
I'm telling you, I've never seen Hollywood pick a worse choice.
Yeah.
And
It's
no
like-
offense, Jake. I think you could do a better job now.
Oh, Hayden Christensen was terrible too.
Well, exactly.
But no, to be fair though, he was only terrible in the Star Wars movies. Like outside of Star Wars movies,
That's true.
Hayden Christensen's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, look at it. I mean,
He's not terrible.
when you have a movie with
That's
Ewan
true.
McGregor and Liam Neeson doing a bad job, you know it's not the actors, it's
Yeah.
the director.
It's the
Yeah.
You can blame it on the midi-chlorians. I'm just saying that was the problem.
Okay.
They just weren't
we
focused
want,
on the
I'm
right
just saying,
thing.
we want a Haley Joel Osment. That's what we want. I just learned today that I never paid attention, but in AI, he never blinks. Like when he was doing the role of the fake boy,
That's a great movie.
Holy
I never
crap.
noticed it.
That movie-
he actually held when he like that's how good an actor he was. Is he held his eyes open during
So
the
that he
entire
could
take, so
appear
he would look artificial. Like he
artificial.
never blinks. And I was like,
I didn't
That's
know
weird.
that, but I can see that.
yeah.
But that
I-
movie puts me like.
See, and that's something like
in
now what they would do is they would just digitally
tears.
take out the blinks.
Yeah.
oh,
They would
yeah.
just replace the eyes.
No, Haley Joel Osment
He
was
didn't
was the
blink.
real deal. He did not blink.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But that is, I don't know. I've not actually ever seen that movie.
Are you
full.
serious?
Oh man, that's
Oh,
a messed up
dude.
movie.
It's
It's good though.
it's weird.
It
It's
is
like a
good.
modern day like Pinocchio.
Yeah, that's
But
what
I mean, it's a
it's-
I
beautiful
want to be a
movie.
real boy.
it's a weird science fiction version.
Yeah.
But it's
I know it's
Oh,
Spielberg,
dude, the
man.
end of that movie will make you
Oh.
freaking
the bear
Cry
used to
puddle.
Creep, the bear
Cry
used to creep me
puddles.
out.
Huh? Oh, the bear.
It creeped me
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
All right.
Jude Law going and playing music.
What was it?
I love it.
He has like a tick. Yeah.
It's awesome.
You should watch it. You should.
I'll have to. I'll have to go back and watch it. I think the only thing I've seen with like animatronic stuff that I liked was Hugo. That was like
kind of different though.
They're totally different. Totally different.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Scorsese, and it was like not even really about the.
No.
Well, Hugo had like kind of the
Jude Law's in that one
steampunk-
too.
Yeah, he is. He is.
It does. It has a
Yeah.
steampunk feel.
It's
yeah.
more of the steam. Yeah, whereas this is more like.
well steampunk
sleek.
mixed with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
AI is more
AI's
like
like-
futuristic.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
Apple.
But
They
AI was
tried. It's like
Spielberg.
iRobot. They tried to make it futuristic.
iRobot was
No, no.
I don't know. A lot of people liked iRobot. when it
AI's
came
way
out.
better than iRobot.
all right. What's our relationship? Then?
That's
It's a good
true.
topic.
We
Well,
do this
Sean,
every
you-
time.
You brought it up beforehand. You came up with our topic. You introduce it.
I was just. We actually got an idea from our neighbor friend, but we were kind of we were struggling to think of something that was passed down to us, like as far as a saying or a word of advice or anything like that. I think that needs more time to think on. So I was just kind of asking, what is maybe a material item or sentimental item or something that was passed down to you or given to you by a grandfather or grandmother or somebody like that.
My DNA.
Your DNA, huh? Your DNA.
Every time he cuts
my genetic material.
You were made in a lab.
It's like without
Wuhan.
my grandparents and parents.
You are COVID.
You are the reason.
My grandfather ate a bat, and here I am.
Oh, Ozzy?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So what's a material object that you all can think of that you all were handed down? You all have one?
Yeah, I have one.
I have one too.
I just was waiting for.
All right, Keith, you open it up.
Oh, I'm gonna go first.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. I own quite a bit of the original Kenner Star Wars toys that were my They were my brothers that were given to me, and I still have. I have the.
I love those things.
I'm not doing anything because I'm a little short funds, but I've been like trying to restore a lot of them and looking on eBay and stuff to buy because. To buy a whole like perfect Millennium Falcon would be like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
To buy the little parts though are only like they're like $30 a part, but considering that if you buy a couple of parts and now you have something that's like you spend maybe a couple like $100 or so bucks, but then you have something worth $1,000 is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So you're looking to restore these?
I just for myself.
I don't plan on selling them
for. Yeah. I did think if ever came a time where I had to buy like bulk of something and had a bunch of like spare stuff, I could resell that on eBay and recoup the cost. eBay, yeah. Well, but
eBay.
I said
eBay.
It was just the way I said E. I was
Where
like,
you
eBay.
going? I'm going to eBay.
Hey, come on.
I'm sorry, it's just
great.
great.
You're fine. It was just the way I said, because I didn't say A. I was like, the E was kind of soft where I was like, I talk so fast sometimes that I get.
I know. You get excited about things and then you really go fast.
I do.
So how many, have you restored any of them yet?
No, because I haven't had a job.
Any money.
But I still have a lot of them. I was looking because most of them are in very good condition.
Do you have the guy with the tentacles?
Yeah. Bib Fortuna.
Jabba's?
Yep.
Is that what his name is?
Mm-hmm. Bib Fortuna. Yep.
Yeah, I used to have that.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't have it anymore.
I have a lot of the action figures. And
it's
then, like I said, I have the Millennium Falcon. I have Boba Fett's the Slave One, or I think it's one. I forget the nomenclature.
And that tells you how freaking popular those were.
The AT-AT. I have that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man. That's got to be...
The two-legged, not the four.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes. Actually, I remember playing with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
have Luke's land speeder. I'm trying to remember. I have Jabba and his throne or whatever.
I remember playing with these when we were younger.
I have a lot of them.
We played with these.
They're worth a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Even what I have not in mint condition, I could make a couple $100 selling all of it if I wanted.
And it's interesting because even which I wasn't handed these down, but I used to go over to my aunt's house and she would babysit me in the summertime when my dad and mom were at work. And her son, Davey, when he was obviously much older, grew up with those toys, so he had them. They still had them, and actually had like this C-3PO like half, like the bust of a like C-3PO.
Yeah, the carrying case. I have the Darth Vader version.
Wow. And so he had that, and like he had all the action figures, and she would get those out for me. My Aunt Linda would get them out for me and let me play with those in the summer. And like, obviously, as a little kid, they're just toys. You don't think about.
See, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, man, it's like I gotta hold a Davey. See, if he still has those. Buy them off.
Yeah, he probably does. I mean, I have no doubt that he probably not only still has them, but he probably let his sons play.
Yeah, they had two. They had the Darth Vader and the C-3PO case, and I have like the Darth Vader that my brothers had. I never owned the C-3PO one, but I would rather have the Vader one anyway.
That's a great hand-me-down. Sean, you got to have something that tops that.
I don't know if necessarily tops that.
Just kidding.
I have all of my I don't think I have all of them, but I do have at least two of his most recent tobacco pipes before he died.
Awesome.
I also have it's probably worth a lot more money, but it sounds okay, but I have a Magnavox, one of the very first Magnavox huge
boom boxes.
It's a record player.
Oh yeah,
but it's like a piece of furniture. Like it's huge.
Yes,
it's like a coffee table, but it's a record player.
Console, basically.
Yeah, and my great grandmother, when she passed away, there was a lot of stuff that they were given to different family members and stuff, and they asked me if there was anything that I wanted, and I always remember as a kid. It has like a top that slides open and exposes the record player, and then you can slide it back and set stuff on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as a kid, I was always, every time I was over at her house, I was sliding that open and looking down in there, and she'd always get on me about it. So, I kind of thought, I want that so I can slide that thing open anytime I want without getting yelled at. And so they gave me the record player. I didn't know if it worked or not, but I put a new needle in it, and it sounds pretty awesome. It's got Elton John's Rocket Man.
Oh, nice. That's a good one to
record
have
in there,
right
or whatever. I don't know what that was the name of the album. It's got that and Benny and the Jets and Yellow Brick Road and all that on it.
Yeah, that's
so,
awesome.
But it sounds good. It's in my basement. I'll probably never get rid of it.
Oh, heck no.
And it's in beautiful. If you put some pledge on it and get it shiny,
gorgeous.
It's in perfect condition.
That's that gorgeous vintage,
it's legit.
Just the furniture that you
probably
love to
from
keep.
the 50s.
Yeah,
that's probably when it's from.
And if you can restore it and make it work even better,
it works.
He said it's already mint, man.
That's
already
awesome.
mint.
That
sounds
fantastic.
good.
Heck yeah.
But that's two things that I can honestly think of from two different family members that I probably want to. I mean, I've used the pipes that my mom got them when my grandfather died, and then I asked her once, like, "Hey, do you have any Pop's old smoking pipes?" And she said, "I don't know if I have them." And then eventually she found them and gave them to me, and I've used them, and it's really funny. I was telling Keith when I first got them that before I lit one up, like, you can smell the bowl. And it
smelled like his tobacco.
Yeah, man, it did. It smelled just like the tobacco he smoked, which I loved sitting out on the porch and just smelling that.
Exactly.
That sweet tobacco smell, and you could smell it like it was like he had smoked it yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome.
Yeah, it is.
So it's kind of funny. It's a material thing, and it shouldn't really mean anything.
But it has so much more sentimental value.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The one thing that I can think of, it's not a huge. It's kind of opposite, it's like it's something that I do keep in my office, and had it when it was odd. I have a sentimental tie to it from when I was younger, and it's something that you can't really use it. It has no function. But I remember always going over to my grandma's house, who she actually passed away when I was around 6 years old. So I really don't, and she's the only grandparent I've ever had. So I don't have too many memories of any, of my grandparents except my grandma on my mom's side. And so I would always go over to her house, and this one thing that I would always love was this huge seashell that she picked up actually on the beach. They found it, and it's massive. But I remember, that old trick of they would be like, put it up to your ear, you can hear the ocean.
Yeah.
And so I would, and I'd be like, oh my gosh. And I was amazed by it. And so, of course, like it was just one of those things where as a 6-year-old, you're like, oh my gosh, how could the whole ocean fit in there?
Yeah.
And you believe it. I still do. No, it's like, so like, I just remember when she passed away, and I was probably, I think 7 or 8. And it was one of the things that they, my parents had gotten, and they gifted that to me, knowing that was one thing that I was just attached to, whenever she was here and alive. And so I've kept that ever since. Yeah. And it's just one thing that I keep it on my desk. It reminds me of my grandma, and it's like I don't have very many memories, but that one thing is something that I know it is just kind of like a set piece. It's not anything that is, I can't use it, but it's something that reminds me of her, and it's something that I'll always have just to keep there right on my desk.
And I will say, and I think both of you would probably agree with me on this a little bit. One of the biggest things that I think I got from my grandparents is a lot of my taste in film, and that's one thing. Yeah. That's one thing I love about, like, I mean, I just mentioned
not me.
I say my parents, but
my grandparents didn't watch movies.
I mentioned that I discovered Who Framed Roger Rabbit was in 4K HDR on Disney Plus, so I had to watch it, and that's one of like movies like that, or horror movies in general, because my grandmother loved horror movies, stuff like that. When I watch those movies,
it's funny.
Again over and over, I immediately think of them and memories of my family, because the only reason like I fell in love with Roger Rabbit is because I watched it a million times at my grandmother's house. Yeah. Star Wars, Western movies, horror movies, stuff like that came from them. Animation, my love from animation came directly from my grandmother. Yeah. So there's just things like that when I watch stuff that I specifically remember watching with her.
See,
it's like,
for me, it's much more the stories and the people that remind me of them. You know, watching a movie and seeing someone encapsulate who they were, and just that's when it hits me of like, oh, that reminds me of them.
That's why I fell in love with The Ranch. I didn't watch that for years. Sean told me for years I need to watch The Ranch on Netflix. and I watched it. I watched it this year, and every episode reminded me of like stuff from like because my grandparents and my family are very country, and I just would watch stuff from that ranch and think of like my grandfather and the farm and stuff, and be like, it's like, man, this could be my family doing stupid stuff.
But definitely always nice to have those things passed on from generation to hold on to remember. Especially when you don't have memories of them, or when they, it's just having that item close by that reminds you so much of who they were and what they added to your life.
My grandmother loved Billy Madison.
There is nothing wrong with that.
I watched Billy Madison
at
their house once, and she thought she was just like, that's the cutest movie. And I'm like, Mimi, did you pay any attention to that?
She sees herself as his grandma.
And then one time we took her to the movie theater to see City of Angels. With Nick Cage.
And Meg Ryan.
And Meg Ryan. And we sat through that movie, and at the end, she was bawling. and my mom, leaned over, and she was just like, are you okay, Mom? And she goes, he gave up heaven for her. Like she was dying.
That's awesome.
And it was like one of the only, it's like maybe the only 2 movies I ever
watched with your grandma
knew of that she had seen. And he gave up heaven.
My grandma, she watched everything. She recorded everything. There are
I was
cabinets full of tapes.
One thing I remember about going over to his
that
grandparents' house, it was I walk in, they have their entire wall covered with VHSs.
Yes.
It was before people had the binders of DVDs.
Yep.
And it littered their walls.
They were the original bootleggers because most of that wall wasn't bought movies. They were stuff taped off of the
I
TV.
had a cousin in Ohio that was like every time we went there. That was like me and my dad walked into my cousin Rick's basement, and it was the same way. He had the cases and cases of VHS tapes, and he had them organized and had a book.
Yep.
And,
my grandfather
we never got that fancy.
Oh man,
my grandfather had a book, and he would take the little round stickers and he'd write a number on the sticker and put it on each cassette, and in the book the number would correlate to what movie. So that way, because they had so many, if I wanted to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit, he'd be like, well, that's
43.
This. And I mean, that's how that copy of Who Framed Roger. That's how I watched that movie so much was from a recording.
Yep.
Wow.
If you've ever been to my dad's house, my dad has all those movies.
Yep.
And the reason he does that is because of my cousin Rick in Ohio.
I think that's the
he
reason
was so
why.
Impressed by that.
I think that's the reason why I used to. Now everything's digital, but I used to buy physical copies of almost
everything.
All.
And it's funny, we didn't have the huge wall of them, but we would tape our fair share. And I just remember my dad would always get into the habit of he would write the name out on the VHS sticker, and then he'd draw a little drawing. That was like a little sketch of what the movie was about.
Really?
I actually remember.
No.
I remember
These
some of those.
They were like stickman drawings.
Yes.
But it was I remember Bridge over River Kwai he taped, and it was like a little bridge, and it was falling, and a bunch of stick figures on both sides.
Oh, wow.
It's just great.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
My dad just got into it. I don't know why.
That's cool.
But it was and I remember they would always, get particular about, some people would intentionally, when they were recording, stop in the middle of the commercial, restart the recording. But he said, no, that's fancy. And he said, most people always forget to record and they miss a part of the movie.
My grandmother was one of those.
A stickler.
She was good, man. You would get that when Fade to Black commercial would go off, and then usually she would start it right when it's that final
coming
ad.
up tonight on the news, and then boom, fade back in.
Yeah.
Always a little promo.
You always had a little.
You always have a stupid.
You always
promo.
had a little bit promo, but she knew which promo was going to reintroduce the movie, and bam, there you had it.
And there you had it.
So you always had those little tidbits. Every now and then, she might slip up, and you get a little bit of commercial. But I think there was only one instance I ever remember where she didn't record part of the movie, and that was The Great Muppet Caper. And honestly, that's the weakest Muppet movie anyway. So
it doesn't matter. But I can tell you right now, I can't tell you how many times I've looked up vintage commercials on YouTube just because I want to remember back to what they were.
Where's the beef?
10, 10, 220.
The Hostess commercials, the one with the shark and the yes. It's like, where's the cream filling? Everything's where's. Where's the beef? Where's the cream filling?
All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for this episode.
People just want to know where stuff is.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. As always, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show, You can email us. That's right. rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. Right there.
Wow.
At the bottom of your screen, Sean.
Whoa.
Yeah.
RMPodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
I love that. It looks
that what
like
it says?
You're trying to read it.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Right there. You're looking right at it.
That's amazing.
You got it.
Can you see it, Keith?
Social distancing. Social distancing. Right there. Hey, come on. Right there, Keith, on the bottom of your screen.
Can't be doing that.
I wanted to see it on the bottom of Sean's screen,
on the
not
bottom
mine.
of his screen.
This screen here, right here. Is this it?
But now I've cut away from you. So it was there.
That's okay. We don't need to come back.
No, we want to thank everybody for watching us. But yes, email us, or like we've always said, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com, to catch all of our past episodes and all of our other content, all of our previous reviews.
Mm-hmm.
You can see them all live right there on redmoonproductions.com.
We got a quarantine drive-in coming up?
We do.
What's that going to be?
And guys, I have some sad news.
Uh-oh.
That's not really sad because everybody's going to be out playing for the summer anyway.
Yeah.
You know, quarantine's coming to a close. So our last quarantine drive-in is going to be at the end of May. That's right. We've got at least, I think it's 3 more this week's and then 2 more.
Okay.
And then we're done with quarantine drive-in. Because we figure...
Sure? I feel like we only have the 2.
Maybe it is just the 2. Maybe I'm getting my dates mixed up.
This week and next week are the only 2 weeks left in May.
So what's this week's film going to be?
Oh, no. You're putting me on the spot.
Well, let's see. We did McClintock last week, right?
Thursday at 8 p.m.
I think it was...
Sharp.
Thursday at 8 p.m. Hold on. I've got it right here in my notes. Gosh. And I'm just... Oh, God. Oh, no.
It's over.
Oh, we got it. We're done.
Somebody gave us the axe.
Oh, no.
Well, that was like an Academy Award speech.
Yeah. They were just like, the music came on.
Well,
you know what? We're going to let y'all know. On Facebook and YouTube. So check us out. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And Keith Cheatham. We'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.